Thank you very much for joining this meeting today. It's a wonderful initiative that's come about over the last 3 months, and this is the second of our meeting of a partnership between London Care and Support Forum and SLaM, one of the biggest mental health trusts in the country. We're glad that you're here, and we are also have a few housekeeping rules before we start. We'd be asked kindly if you keep your mic on mute, and please use the chat to ask questions, and just so that you're aware, the event is being recorded so that you'll be able to share this with your fellow colleagues, and it may be held on the portal that's been produced by SLaM and LCAS, and you'll be able to look back and read and look back at it in the future. Today we're addressing the question of the stigma in social care and the NHS about mental health, and also about the notion about having the proportion of people who may not be able to speak or share their thoughts in regards to depression, mental health, and their well-being. We understand that from the pandemic, there have been many struggles that have been put on social care and the NHS, being at the front line and having to go through all the things they've had to go through. The other challenges that have come about have also come about from culture as well as diversity and the nuances that come with it. The key today, and why we're here on this event, is to really address things such as stigma, the well-being, also how we can help one another. We're bringing together many speakers, and our last event we had Dame Edna Anue speaking, and today we've got an author, and we've also got lived experience from wonderful manager Sue-Ann. And we're also introducing the portal that's been produced, and you can see how it's dealt with diversity in the workplace. We also have some Q&As where you'll be able to interact, and some prize giveaways by our wonderful author, Alex Winstanley, who was on ITV News yesterday. And finally, before we leave, will be your final thoughts. So I thank you and welcome for joining the event. So my agenda is starting really with the introduction. And the reality is the effect of the pandemic will be felt on both our immediate and longer term health and well-being. Many people from various backgrounds have different experience of mental health care, but accessing mental health services and support can be a difficult experience. Obviously, things such as stigma and lack of cultural sensitivity treatment can act as barriers for accessing mental health care, especially those from Black, Asian, and ethnic backgrounds. People can be worried about how they'll be perceived by health professionals, fear of being misunderstood, or the concern of services and how if they're being met. Recently, there was a study that 30% of care workers claim that the pandemic has affected their mental health, and we expect this figure to continue to rise as time goes on. Here, we're all asking us to really come together, as we've all had to be resilient in our workforces to really continue this. But the simple thing is, and one thing that we found is really looking at solutions. There have been many initiatives, but we wanted to create not just solutions, but also a legacy where people can go to afterwards. When this interview or when this event stops, people are able to go somewhere. And this has been part and parcel of what the portal has been about. It's ongoing and something we feel that you'll be able to share and look into, and something that we hope can be replicated up and down the country, which it covers not just those from a diverse background, but all of those working within health and social care. The other issue that we found is that there are a lot of practices and a lot of websites and training aimed just at the NHS. People will be surprised that there are more workers in health and social care than they are in NHS. And this is a problem which is often forgotten, but this shares where both parties can share and be in one place. So I'd like to thank everyone for coming today. And we're going to start introducing our first guest. His name is Alex Winstanley. It's a pleasure of having him. Just a quick introduction. Alex Winstanley is an award-winning individual with international experience of working with children and young people. He had years of experience as a teacher, carer, and Senko, and has led him to setting up a non-for-profit organization, Happy Smiles Training, which empowers disabled young adults to create positive social change by delivering awareness, training across schools, community groups, businesses, and more. We'll be sharing his website in the chat for you to check out. Alex has recently written a series of children's books to support them to understand a range of long-term health conditions, including things such as dementia, depression, and cancer. And at the end of today's session, we'll be giving a giveaway for the 2 attendees to win a signed copy of his book, My Uncle Has Depression. This is great because the stigma starts from when you're young. If we can eradicate it and show people, for children in school, that this isn't an issue or concern, it makes it a lot easier. And as children's books, children are very open, and it's no different. Adults can actually look at it as well. So I'd like to introduce and call on my first guest, Alex Winstanley.
Hi Dudley, all right, and hi everyone. Nice to see you all, and thanks for having me today.
Thank you very much, Alex, for coming on. I feel we're very lucky to have you. I know you just came off, you were on ITV last night presenting your book, and all that have come with it. So I guess we're lucky to have you, and I hope that you can share some of your insights. One of the things that why I thought it'd be great for you to speak was because, as I said before, the stigma and many stigmas happen in cultures, but it starts from, if we're going to change any of the stigma, it starts from addressing people from a young age. And I love the fact you've written a range of children's books in really simple format to really, for people to understand. And I think it's something that can be shared at the dinner table with families, something I know that you're doing within schools as well. And it's something that we should eradicate and help things to eradicate the taboo. I know you've got many strings to your bow, apart from being an author and a teacher and working with the disabled community as well. I know personally that you also play a lot of rugby, and part of what you do is you actually train the actual Ghanaian rugby league team, should we say. So many people probably won't notice that or may not know that. So so it's great to know. So please let us know a bit about, I guess the name of the book, Your Uncle Has Depression. So please.
Yep. Yeah, sure. Thanks. Yeah, well, I've got it here with me. So I've got a few copies there. And the book, My Uncle Has Depression, like you say, it was the second in a series. The first one I've got here as well was My Grandma Has Dementia, and that was about my grandma and about her living with her experiences of living with dementia. And that kicked on this series. So as you said, the dementia book has been shortlisted for a Dementia Hero Award, which is amazing. And hopefully, the depression book can have just as much impact. I couldn't agree with you more about, I'm really passionate about reaching children and young people from a young age, as young an age as possible, because that is where stigma it builds. Because as an example, as a carer and teacher, I've seen so many times where children, young people aren't opened up to conversations about differences, be it disability or differences in race, gender, disability, whatever it may be. As a society, I feel like we're scared of difference, and we challenge difference instead of celebrating it and championing difference. Because the more that we do that, especially from a young age, the more that children and young people grow up thinking that it's okay to be different because everybody's different, and that's the only way that we'll have a diverse and inclusive society, in my opinion.
And you also wrote this book on depression. From that, I'm not going to give too much away because we're going to give away the book, and we would like people to actually look at the book itself. But can you just give us sort of an insight, maybe the first page of what the things that you first want to address or want people to understand with depression? Because I think there are many people who may have gone through the pandemic during this period. They've been battling on, and maybe some are suffering in silence. We don't want people to suffer in silence and really want people to open up. So what's the sort of first things that you would sort of start with, should we say?
Yeah, great question. And I agree, obviously the past year's challenges, nobody saw them coming. And for a lot of people, they've been super challenging in a lot of different ways. Apologies for my accent, by the way, everyone. I hope everyone can hear what I'm saying? All right, nice and
This
covered.
is national, Alex. So I guess there are people from hopefully from north of England, maybe Scotland, or all parts of and my accent's from London. But this doesn't discriminate. So I guess the wonderful of this is that it's a national, if not a global, agenda that we're dealing with.
Brilliant. Brilliant. No, I agree. That's great. Yeah, I think the number one place it starts with the books, like with our training that we do through Happy Smiles as well, is it's all about lived experience. When I'd left my teaching job to set up Happy Smiles as a training company, I couldn't have done that without the support of a team of young disabled adults who deliver our training, because it's all about their experience. And it's the same with the books. So I've spoke to obviously people with this book who have lived experience of depression, who told me about their experiences, and then it's taking that and trying to put it in as much of a child-friendly way as possible, and making sure that it's realistic and supportive, but at the same time positive. And finding that balance is a really exciting challenge. And as you'll see, I mean, I can share my screen and just show you a page or two of the book if you like.
That'd be fantastic if you could do.
Yeah, I mean,
that.
hopefully we can see the book there on the screen. And like I say, it was inspired by a lot of people I knew, or rugby players who I knew and rugby league players, but also players over in Australia and other places, and particularly people from Indigenous backgrounds and Indigenous communities, speaking about their experiences of depression, and that really inspired me around this character of this uncle. And at the same time, my uncle has bipolar as well, so it's something that I'd sort of grown up with a little bit of experience around. But yeah, just as an idea. Obviously, the book, the illustrations are incredible by someone called Adam Walker Parker, and Adam's an awesome illustrator. And just in terms of putting things in a really child-friendly way, it helps to get across obviously these really serious messages. So, and there's other things that we can do. For example, you'll see one thing that we talk about in schools is that the little girl who narrates this story, where he's wearing hearing aids, and it's not something that we pick up on. We don't really mention it. It's just to show that people might be wearing a hearing aid, and that doesn't really matter. It's trying to show the children that just because that person looks a little bit different, they're still a person, and they still have a lot of value to give. So that's just little hints we try to drop in. And the other thing is as well that the book's not only a picture book but also a rhyming. That's a nice challenge to try and get everything into a rhyming format too. But obviously it helps the flow and also helps really young children to try and understand what we're talking about. And yeah, like I say, we've had pictures from people around the world sending them in saying how they've enjoyed the books. And that's from, although the books are aimed at children from 4 to sort of 10, 11 years old, we've had pictures of people who are, have babies at weeks and weeks old, sort of 24 weeks old, all the way up to sort of teenagers who've been getting in touch from across Australia, America, all sorts of places across the UK, which is incredible. So, whenever anyone gets in touch, yeah, it means a lot. So,
I mean, one thing that I found, which is really great, is that the thing you've touched on is that mental health services should meet the needs of people from all backgrounds and all disabilities. And I think one thing is that is evident in your book, as you mentioned, people from indigenous backgrounds and so forth. And the stigma that comes with it, it's a serious issue. We're talking with mental health, but also as well, the barrier as well shouldn't be blocked or shouldn't be, there are different cultures, religions, race, and everyone encounters their own stories as individuals themselves, but it shouldn't stop that this actual thing or the actual mental health is global, it's real, and it can affect anyone. And that can be across anything from depression, anything from anxiety. And I think the problem is that as we realize, people once they mention mental health, they sometimes can be categorized and put into an area which people, don't feel comfortable with, and then they fear that they can't speak up. So as you said, books like this help open that conversation. So for future generations, we don't have that stigma that sort of continues across the board.
Definitely, yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's exactly what these books are about. It's that conversation starter. So, whilst we hope that it represents as many people's experiences as possible, the next book, for example, is about cancer. and my brother had cancer and a friend, and I lost a friend to cancer, and you know, that tells their stories, but at the same time, hopefully represents many other people as well. But where it can't always represent everyone's story, that's where it is that it's that conversation starter for children and young people. And from my experience of talking in schools just yesterday, we were speaking in schools, and you know, children, young people are curious, and you know, we've got to feed that curiosity. Otherwise, that is what creates that stigma. As soon as you ignore that curiosity, that's where those sort of more negative bias or negative thoughts start coming in. And yeah, that's something I'm really passionate about. So, like I say, delivering that with children, young people, especially in schools, is something I'm really passionate about and I'm really enjoying doing.
I think it's really great as well. I mean, we're doing this event this week, and it's obviously Health Awareness Week for those who've joined or may not have known that. And there are many events that happen, but I think the reality is that this doesn't stop today. It continues beyond that. And your book holds that. And as you said, after you finish this, you're going to be continuously going around to schools up and down the country, virtually, as well as at some point in person, really to share your experience, but the book as well. And I think, as we mentioned, stigma and other factors that come into play, this is a starting point. So I really thank you for sort of coming on to really share that. I'm going to share some of the information in the chat box of you being on ITV, and also some of your socials. And I would ask people really to have a look at it. I mean, because another thing, which is another great thing, is that even having these books with adults as well in different cultures, and then looking at it, I'm not saying it normalizes it, but it obviously brings it into easy language, and having a language that can be discussed rather than in-depth book or trailing through many deep websites. So thank you very much for you coming on. I'm going to open up the floor, maybe there might be a few questions that people may want to ask you, if anyone does. You can either kindly raise your hand option, or I will try and see if we can pull out someone, if someone wants to ask Alex anything further in regards to that, or anything around stigma, or anything that he has done or relative to this. So I'm sure there will be some questions from some people.
Great, no worries. Yeah, thanks a lot, and thanks everyone just for I suppose engaging and listening about the books and about the work that I'm doing. I really appreciate it.
Okay, so I think we've had lots of thanks. I think people are really appreciative of what you're doing. I don't know if there's much that people may want to add to a question that you're asking. A question I guess I'd like to ask you is that you've mentioned depression, you've mentioned cancer. There are a lot of things happening, as you know, with disability and social care that probably isn't addressed, and making it simple is really great. I think that's a great vehicle, because if many people probably who are here from social care may feel that they get the rough end of not being recognised by the government and by people in the everyday community of the work that they've done. Really, this shows that carers and what they do, how much we're doing, and it also gives the children who only just see the nurses in the NHS, probably not seeing that, you know, a care worker going into someone's home or working in a care home or in a community have an issue. So I thank you for that. I think I've got a question from Carl. If you can unmute, Carl.
Morning all. Well done on the book, Alex, and obviously thank you for putting this together. One question for you that I've got, and it's kind of like the one question, it's a magic question really. So considering your book and the challenges of everything that you've kind of gone through, trying to help people make a difference and be joined up, what would be your one wish?
Great question, that, Carl. I think everything that, you know, I'm extremely passionate about is trying to create inclusive communities. So my one wish would be that you know, I suppose we wouldn't be having some of these conversations. I suppose they wouldn't be a thing, because you know, we're having these conversations because unfortunately things like depression have a stigma, things like disability have a stigma attached to them, etc. A lot of things around difference have stigmas attached. So I guess that one wish would be that, you know, those stigmas aren't uh, around in society anymore, so that we're not having these conversations, so that everyone is embraced and included in society, no matter what the background.
Thank you for that. I could carry on answering loads of questions, but it's probably best I'm not. There's a lot of other people on there. I will connect with you and have a separate conversation about being joined up and making that wish happen.
No worries. Thanks, Carl.
Yeah, thank you for that, Carl. Another question that I had was, you mentioned about depression, and we're talking about mental health specifically more so. And you've obviously worked in not just with the disabled kids, you also worked in the rugby league community. I know there's been some issues with mental health in that area. What things would you say can be done, or people can do, not to normalize mental health, because we don't want it to be a major thing, but what things have you done to address things like mental health, or have you looked at, or would you say to the kids when you are speaking to them?
So from conversations with people with lived experience of depression, the biggest thing that has come out of those conversations is to talk, which seems to be the hardest thing to do, particularly, like you say, for rugby league players, and for anyone who isn't sure what rugby league is, it's a form of rugby, like rugby union, but mainly in the north. But as you said, Dudley, I've done some work in Ghana and other places as well around rugby league. It's something I'm really passionate about. And it's a sport where, you know, it's about going to war essentially with other people. You know, it's a very physical sport. And I spoke to one player, a former professional, recently, who said, you know, he said, put me in front of anyone, put me in front of any bloke, and I will, you know, I will go to war with them. But he said, talk about my emotions, I'm rubbish. He said, I just can't do it. I'm not emotionally resilient, particularly from a working class background. He said, I struggle to talk about my emotions, and the way that was always drilled into me was to take it out on the rugby field. And he said, and that stopped me from growing, you know, my emotional resilience. So that's something that, you know, different people with lived experience have said to me, you know, people need to talk, and the best thing, as I could say, as children, is just to talk as much as possible about anything, any struggles that they might have, or a family member have, or a friend might have.
Oh, that's great. And also as well, someone has asked is, how did you, some Ghanaians in the room have asked, how did you manage to deal with the Ghanaian challenges and dealing with any sort of questions with, not say mental health, but dealing with any challenges with any sort of mental health or any stigmas that you dealt with or coming across, maybe when dealing with the Ghanaian sort of rugby league team, should we say?
Yeah, great question. So my time in Ghana, both times I was over there across a couple of years, I had an incredible time, and I've got some really close friends from those experiences. It's a wonderful country, and I just loved learning about this completely different culture, obviously, to the UK, and things like, for example, I did a dissertation, I did a master's as well, but my dissertation there was around how people are included in mainstream schools and in special needs schools in Ghana. And a lot of the teachers wanted to tell me that, you know, we include disabled people with disabilities, the different terms they used, but that wasn't always the case. You know, people often want to tell you, I suppose, what you want to hear, and that's one thing that I found. But I found it just to be just wonderful people, and there was some amazing examples of inclusion over there as well. One or two things that I would say that probably we could learn from over here too. So yeah, I've got extremely fond memories of my time there.
Okay, that sounds great. I mean, I think you mentioned the word of inclusion being the key for a lot of us, and I think there's maybe managers here or people in organizations really thinking of how what to do next, and if they have concerns and issues. And you've mentioned some great things here. You've mentioned talking, you've mentioned inclusion, you've mentioned people sharing together so that there is one as opposed to differences, and so really dividing the differences. And I think also when Carwin asked his question as well, there's some really great sort of take homes from there. I think one thing that I really am really excited about is during this pandemic period, there's been lots of questions that people have come up with, people have challenged, not just mentally, their personal lives have changed, people have been indoors, people have been let out, and I think it's about starting something, but actually doing something. And it's wonderful that you've actually created a book and something that's going to be great legacy and is ongoing in schools as well, so that people you can leave the table with something. And part of one of these of my events and one of the things I'm introducing later is just leaving something behind. So once we do stop this, there's something else to look at. And as we know, having something available to reference is great. So thank you very much, really, Alex, for really coming along. Please don't leave us, because we're going to be doing a draw for 2 lucky people for 2 of your books. They're out, and you can have the pleasure of signing and sending out to them. So thank you very much for coming on and sharing your knowledge. And it's great. In the chat when we shared you on ITV, and also as well we've shared your book as well for those and your details, so that people may be in touch. So thank you very much for coming on.
No worries. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak, about the books and about our work. And as you can tell, obviously I'm really, really passionate about it. And the more people we can promote it to, the better. And with the books, as I said, the first 3 books are on depression, dementia, and cancer. And those 3 things will affect everyone in the world at some point in some way. So the more we can get the word out, the better. Especially, and then with our work, in terms of our work with Happy Smiles, I'm really passionate about giving people that opportunity and that platform to have their voices heard. So we've spoke to just over 3,000 people in the past couple of years, which is great. But obviously, if you think about the countrywide, it's not a lot. So the more we can spread the word with that, the better. And I'll try and put some details in the chat if they're not there already. But yeah, thanks so much. And thanks for the questions. I've not had a chance to look at any that's come through, but I did see one from Lynn that said Mike Gregory was my brother-in-law. So I know who Mike Gregory is really well. So what a legend. And one of the books in the future that I want to work on is M&D as well. With I don't know if anyone knows Rob Burrow is, but a former professional player living with M&D at the moment. So that's something that's in the pipeline too. So yeah, I guess I could pop my details on an email and the website in the chat too. If anyone's got any questions, if I've not seen them, just ping them through.
Yeah, please, everyone, if you haven't been able to come on today, if you are watching us on the record, please send the questions in. I'll send them to Alex. Probably get a chance to probably give him an indication of some other titles he might think of as well. And as Alex works from lived experience, you might be behind one of his next books. You never know. So thank you very much, Alex, for coming on board.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. So thank you very much. As we've got our first speaker, Alex. We're also, as we said, mentioning we are dealing with mainly healthcare and health and social care. One thing we know that health and social care is a massive industry and has been at the forefront recently of a lot of the challenges during the pandemic. We also understand that the makeup of the health and social care industry is very diverse. And for those who are unaware, it makes up of at least the 3rd highest sector for employing the diverse community, and at least 25% up and down the country are from a Black, Asian, ethnic background. So you can see how evident it is. So looking at addressing things such as stigmas and really taboo and cultures is really prevalent. And part of this is, as we said, not just tackling mental health and well-being, we're also looking at nuances that happen within sectors as well. And one of my greatest joys that I've had during this pandemic is that people have had real stories. People have been able to listen to real stories, unlike before. Most of the time with what happened is that you'd hear maybe something in the news or a newspaper, and many people probably wouldn't get to hear. So now people are beginning to hear stories of people's experiences, lived experiences, and really being able to relate to that, because they're like the person next door, or they're normal, or the people that you're actually able to see in the street, rather than your Hollywood star or someone from TV. So one of the things I want to look at as well is bringing in our second speaker, and she is a personal colleague of mine that I've worked with. Her name is Suan Namani. She has over 17 years experience in the social care sector. She loves being a registered manager and working to develop new registered managers. As I said, I've personally worked with her nationally on a Skills for Care BAME webinar series, and they're looking, and she loves to tackle inequalities in health and social care and passionate about it. She's managed people from many different backgrounds, and she also cares for people from many different backgrounds as well. So the nuances of dealing with people within our sector, Suan is really, I feel, will bring her many years of experience in here. So I'd really like to ask now for Suan to really come on board, and then she'll get to share some of her personal stories and experiences, and maybe thoughts that she has, especially in and around mental health and well-being.
Thank you. Thanks, Dudley. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Alex, for sharing, and great work. Keep it up. I'm looking forward to your MND journey, which we've had clients here with motor neuron disease as well. So would look forward to that. I just wanted to start off by sharing a few things that we probably all are aware of, but it's just to highlight in relation to people from Black, Asian, minority ethnic communities. Based on their experiences, obviously racism is one of the biggest areas which we can't get away from. We know that it exists, but what we need to understand is around the impact that that might have on somebody's mental health and well-being, as opposed to being able to freely share how they're feeling. Oftentimes people from these sorts of communities do not share, and that, that stems from their cultural makeup, or possibly how their family dynamics work, and it's hidden. So despite us maybe seeing signs that somebody is depressed or that somebody is affected by these sorts of issues like racism and discrimination, they're not the ones that would come forward and share that with their employer. And it takes them a lot of coaxing and time to actually share how they're feeling. So I'm going to give an example of a live example of what's happened during the pandemic. There was a few members of staff who were quite worried about the impact of COVID on not only their own health, based on the fact that we were seeing a lot of the communities, BAME communities, obviously dying as a result of contracting the virus, but also around their family life and taking that back home to their families, and equally affecting individuals within our care setting. So we are a 117 bedded nursing home. We're located in Haringey, and we have predominantly Black minority ethnic staff makeup, and also our residents are from that majority background as well. So we have quite a number of our clients are from the Caribbean and African countries. And so hence we understand how that may impact on both the staff and our residents. So in relation to what we did is this particular individual, I'll share one experience and I'll share more if time permits, was worried that, like I said, regards contracting the virus and regards taking it home, and the impact that that had on their own mental health and well-being was seen in relation to not showing up for work, calling in and sharing their experience of how they felt around even wanting to give up their role as a healthcare assistant. So after we had that opportunity to sit down and have a chat with that person and reassure them in relation to PPE protection when they come into the workplace, and then when we actually received the testing of staff, I think it gave them a bit more reassurance that we are looking out for their health and well-being, and we will look to protecting those who have, for example, sickle cell anemia. Conditions such as that would be obviously offered shielding. So it was more so kind of trying to get to the bottom of what their worries were and trying to support them as best we can. And for those who we know that there would have been a greater risk, it was about allowing them that chance to actually take up on shielding and to be off at home on follow. And we did pay our staff at that time 100% of their salary because we knew what that would mean for individuals at 80%. We also have another situation where one of the staff member had gone through a really rough divorce time, and this is actually a registered manager themselves, and the experiences that they went through, obviously they didn't want to be stigmatized. I think you mentioned that, Dudley, with regards to stigma, and they didn't want to come forward and say, I'm in a depression or I'm going through a situation that's causing me to have these feelings. And as a result of that, their registration with the Care Quality Commission was compromised, because when you have to re-register for any setting, you have to share that information, and your GP would obviously put it down as a mental health condition, which this is another reason why people are so afraid to come forward and share how they're feeling in relation to their mental health and well-being, because they feel that they would be ostracized or there'd be a stereotype attached to them. And depression, as we all probably know, all of us at some point has gone through some low points in our life, maybe not as extreme as others, i.e. where people have felt suicidal, but equally there's been stages in our own lives and our journey that obviously has dredged up feelings of depression. So I think we at my nursing home, we went through the mental health first aid course. So there are 10 mental health first aiders within our organization. And our role is to spot the challenges that people might be having, have a look at what impact that might have on themselves and their families, and have those individualized chats with them to say what support is available and how we can actually promote them getting the help that they so need and so deserve. So I think I'll stop there for a minute. If you've got any questions, Dudley, to chip in, I'm happy for you to do so.
Thanks, Sue-Ann. I mean, I didn't want to stop you because it's so powerful what you're actually addressing. And I think some of the questions what I want to ask you, that I think you gave some examples and stories and of real life experience and lived stories of actually things that have been taking place during the pandemic. But one thing that I found, which I would like to ask, is because I've been involved with doing a lot of work presently with groups and asking them really intimate questions about what they've gone through and not having a place to turn to. So I guess the first question I would ask is, how do you make it more appealing for someone to come and speak out to you? Because there's many people who probably may be in this room or have someone at work or someone they know something's wrong. So how have you made it more open in your setting for people to come out to be able to speak to you?
So I'll go a bit before the pandemic struck, and then I'll go when the pandemic struck. So we have group meetings on a monthly basis, and we have representatives which are from the care staff team that would come forward per their department or their unit and bring about any issues that they feel is affecting all of them. And we were trying to actively engage with a union rep to see if there would be any support that we can get in terms of them sitting in on these meetings to make sure that everything in relation to what's discussed can be an open forum that people feel free to actually bring their issues forward. That didn't get run by myself as the manager, because what I felt is that if they knew that the manager was there, they might be less likely to say what the issues are. So it was run by themselves as care staff, but also the HR manager sat in just to take notes and advise them that that was purely her role, was to take notes and take the information back so we can look at improving whatever the issues that might have been brought up. And then it was actually to look at trends as well. So if there was an issue in one department or one unit, then we'll know, okay, that's an isolated issue. However, if it's an issue that's affecting all of the care staff or the home, then we'd obviously know that that's something that we need to really be delving into. So that was prior to the pandemic. Now, what the pandemic did is it reduced those gatherings. So we weren't able to kind of meet the same way. But what we made sure that we did is give staff an opportunity via what we called ISMs, which is individual support meetings, because we don't like the word supervision because people tend to think a negative connotation where that's concerned. But what we did is we offered them an individual support meeting, and we asked, are there any fears? We actually asked specific questions around COVID-19, around their understanding of it, around the support that they might have or not have at home. Because, for example, if somebody's shielding, if their child is going to school, did they know that as a key worker they can get that support and that help? So it was around what their understanding was, but equally, are there any challenges that they might be facing which they didn't actually come forward and advise us of? So we did those meetings in mass throughout the whole home, all departments, and I've got roughly 160 to 180 staff. And so hence everybody had those meetings and were able to share freely how they were feeling. For individuals who might have had, and some of this was actually hidden, whereby they got letters, but because they knew that financially it will impact their home life and paying their bills, some of them did not share those letters with us until we had those meetings and we delved in a bit deeper to find out that people had, you know, conditions like asthma, sickle cell anemia, etc., where they were asked to shield by the government but refused to share that with us. And one of the things that we saw as well through the pandemic is that we didn't, obviously because of GDPR, we were not sent that information, and some staff actually thought that the employers were given that information, and unfortunately it wasn't the case. So it was those discussions that we had that helped us as an employer to actually see what support those individuals are going to need, and then put in the support that's necessary to help them when it comes to their managing their home and family lives.
I mean, you've touched on a really great point there, Sawyerr. I mean, there was a survey done by Mind that over 14,000 adults revealed that that the existing inequalities in housing, employment, finances, and other issues have had a greater impact on their mental health, especially from those from sort of ethnic background groups, rather than those in their white contemporaries during the pandemic. So we've seen obviously a lot of everyday issues, concerns that may have from financing, housing, employment, relationships, which play a part in that.
Yes, because I actually had something I'd like to read as well regards some statistics around that. There's been quite a lot of research that suggests that, you know, obviously BAME communities are also often faced with disadvantages in society. They're more likely to experience poverty, for example, and have poorer educational outcomes, higher unemployment, and, you know, contact with criminal justice system, and even may face challenges accessing and receiving appropriate professional services. And we did see that quite a lot. So what we actually did for employees, is to provide them with meal bags. So we gave them weekly grocery shops, which is just your basics like your milk, egg, fruit, pasta, etc., to reduce them having to go into the shops more frequently. And we did that throughout the peaks of the pandemic, during the first and second waves of the pandemic. And, you know, this was actually so well received by the staff that I actually had individuals wanting us to continue that support. And we did it on that one-to-one basis. So if somebody did come and say, as a result of this, this is what I'm going through, then we would look at strategies on how we are going to continue that support for those ones. But yes, we did see that people were scared to say if they had a positive test, because they were knowing that they had to isolate. They were feeling that they wouldn't get their full pay and it would affect them in terms of paying their bills. As we are all aware, most of our employees, although they're not on the actual minimum wage, they're a bit above that, it still isn't enough for them to actually pay their bills and live in and around this area, which is not central London. So it is something that as an employer, you've got to consistently be in touch with your workers, and you need to be letting them know that support is there for them.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you probably one more question before I open it out to the floor, because I think there's some people really, they're enjoying what you're telling them as well. One of the things that I've had to deal with over the last 3 months, when we'll be revealing the portal that we've sort of put together, was where is there to go? I mean, you've given examples of what you've done in the workplace, which I think is great. And I think probably it's a great example of what people can do. But what else would you say, or where can people go officially? Because, you know, there's so many government websites, there's so many places that they suggest you, you know, where is your average care worker or your something NHS likely to go?
So I'm gonna touch on two things. One is the lack of support that we saw for social care workers as opposed to NHS, which is healthcare workers. And that was in relation to, for example, them having to line up in queues, waiting to get into grocery stores whereby NHS workers had an ID badge. I think that ADAS is working with Proud to Care London to look at a national scheme. But I think that there needs to be, similar to an NHS national ID kind of card, I think that we need to have something like that for social care workers, because what it means is that they wouldn't be ostracized, they wouldn't be feeling as though they're the less of the two, and they shouldn't be meant to feel that way, because obviously they're an intricate part of the care system, and without them, I don't think we could have got through first or second wave of the pandemic. So I think that recognition needs to happen in relation to social care workers and on par with their health counter colleagues. The issue, the question that you asked is in relation to what has happened is it's generated a buzz around the support for social care. And I do know that there are now schemes where people can get discounts. For example, what was happening with NHS colleagues is now happening with social care. A little, although it's great, a little too late, because we obviously wanted and needed that during the pandemic. And then with regards to mental health support, there's been a lot of offers from the local authority, from the NHS, and from Department of Health and Social Care. But my real concern there is, and this is around specifically mental health apps, for example, that was offered during that time to support people with their mental health and well-being. But what wasn't talked about was the fact that not everybody has access to Wi-Fi. Not everybody has access to a smartphone. Not everybody has access to digital frameworks that would have allowed them to access these digital platforms that were being put forward. So I think there should have been a balance of support. So not all heavily focused on these apps, or because I know personally, and I'm from the Caribbean, St. Vincent, I know that when it comes to the support that I need, my support is often favored by a face-to-face conversation. And I know that things had changed during the pandemic where we weren't able to socialize in that sense. However, I would have even preferred a support where I am face-to-face with somebody, even if it's a virtual. And those offers were very, very limited. I do know that you had the Samaritans who were doing quite a lot of work as well. The numbers were shared with our staff, but the outreach was very, very low. And I do know that people would have benefited from those verbal conversations as well as those face-to-face conversations during those very heavy peak areas.
I think that's great, because you've touched on the reality of our communities and the nuances. And I guess one of the things and why we have a stigma and taboo is because people don't want to talk. So I guess finding a way of helping people to reach out to someone, if they can't see you, you don't exist, as we know. So actually having someone there, being in a community, being in your workplace, someone that you can physically maybe pick up the phone to is the reality of definitely the cultures within our communities, which is missed quite openly. So I think it's something that we all can look at, and I think it's something that as part and parcel after this events today and ongoing is something that we can also address as well. I mean, the part of this is that we've created something, but there's always something new and many people can add to this. So before I actually continue, Suran, me and you could probably talk for forever about our experiences within social care and also dealing with the NHS as well. And we have some questions from the audience. So I've got a question from Abdul, if he wants to speak, if that's possible.
Yeah, hi.
Yes.
It was really great, this event, and it's a lot of information, knowledge, and understanding which I'm getting. Thank you very much. My name is Abdul Shakur. I work for Tameside, Oldham, and Glossop Mind, and based in Oldham. What happened when this coronavirus started? The CCG in Oldham, they appointed a COVID-19 link worker for South Asian and African communities. And that was a great step forward, which I didn't see in any other boroughs of Greater Manchester except in Oldham. And I was given that task as a COVID-19. Plus, I'm a mental health practitioner, dementia link worker, and learning disability and autism support. So I've got these 4 or 5 things which I'm doing as a part of my job. What I found is that I agree with Sue. I think she was talking about that this digital technology. Definitely, a lot of people are not aware. Many people don't have smartphone or these tablets and how to use it, especially first generation. Now, with this link worker post, that helps to reduce 80% of these issues within community. Because then I was really in touch with them, talking to them, working with them and their young children, how to access, how to apply for isolation funding. Because the main issue for people was during pandemic, and then mental health was disturbed, was that a lot of organizations, agencies like social service or council, they were not answering the telephones, GP surgeries. If you ring them, there is no answer. And a lot of agencies have a real good excuse of this pandemic of not answering. And it was easy to answer. Even Currys and PC worlds are saying, oh, due pandemic, we can't answer your phone. Look at me, this is so ridiculous. So I was there as a link worker of this COVID-19 almost 7 days a week, and that helps a lot. And we had a good kind of a result in Oldham. Also, when it comes to mental health in South Asian communities, there are so many things. Very many assessment tools do not work with South Asian people or people African origin as well, I would say, or Asian African from Malawi, Uganda, and Nairobi. Because very many things in English, when you translate in Swahili, which is my language as well, it makes no sense. Or if you translate in Asian languages. For example, depression, there is no translation. So what I did in my job, I'm working in mental health field since last 35 years. What I do is I don't ask my client, are you depressed? Because it's being depressed is something which is predictable in Asian culture. It is my duty to look after my old parents. Doesn't matter if I'm depressed or stressed because of that. Because if I complain, my God will be not happy with me, because it's a religious obligation. And same thing applies to a lot of, because I've got loads of friends from Ghana, from Nigeria, Somalia, Sudan, and some asylum seekers. I have worked with them because I speak 9 languages. So that helps me to work with loads of people, whether it's Arabic, Persian, or all Asian languages. So what I use the word, I ask my client, do you have, that word is in English, and every single Asian person knows that word, whether he is educated or not, literate or not, been to school or not, but that word he knows and she knows of any age, and that word is tension. I ask them, do you have any tensions? And they all know, because there are loads of crap Bollywood movies are using tension word in their films. So everybody knows that. So there are, then I do this cultural competence training, which covers Asian, African from all 4 African countries, and some from Ghana as well, Uganda, and South Asian, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, which is 2.5-hour training, which I deliver to staff in social services, hospital, penine care, and that covers age and diversity as well, which is like about dementia. So anytime if anybody needs, I can deliver. There is no charge for it. And I'm always available for anything. I've translated all GAT7, PHQ9 in different languages, and they're approved by Penine Care. So if anybody needs, I will always be available. And I'm enjoying this program, and I'm learning a lot.
Thank you very much, Abdul. I think it's really great because one thing about events like this, from a national point of view, there are many things happening around the country that people may not be aware of. And really sharing this insight really helps, because bridging that gap, you've mentioned just the language alone and communication is key. And the word tension, as you said, can make the word, make people understand more so what's going on. I think it's really fantastic that you've shared this insight with us. And I think you've got a lot of people, and I'll be open to say, who are on digital websites, who are probably putting this together, probably may not even understand. And as you said, breaking down as well, the other work that you've done is the link, because people struggle to speak to people that don't look like them, as we're afraid to say, and be able to share relative information to people they can feel comfortable with. So be it community-based, be it people such as yourself, there is always good to have an interim. And I think it's really great to hear what you've been doing. And I think going forward, it's something that should be shared, not just taken from my point of view, but nationally as well. I think it plays a big part in to do with that. So thank you very much for you really assisting to come to speak on. And really, I think you've probably really touched on something, because the next event we're having is communication within our communities. And I think you've really touched on a really great point. So thank you very much, Abdul, for your insight. So we're going to ask some more questions in the chat room. I think Martha had a question that she wanted to ask as well. And
yeah,
I'm not sure if
Martha's
available, so please, thank you. Go ahead, Martha.
Hi. I think my Wi-Fi's got a bit rubbish, but thank you so much, Sue-Ann. It's really powerful stuff you're talking about. I was just wondering, as a manager in this setting, I feel like those of us who work in health and social care naturally have a lot more or really high levels of empathy anyway. And I think over the pandemic, there's been this, I work for the British Red Cross, and I feel like it's just been constant. There's just this constant, we need to do more. There's people that we still haven't reached yet. And I'm just wondering, as a manager in this environment, how are you protecting yourself?
Yes, we had some skills for care groups that I was involved with, and the idea around them is to bring a topic, and then we kind of delve into what's behind that topic. And interestingly, you asked that question. I raised a subject matter, not realizing that what lie behind that was my own need for support, which oftentimes as a registered manager, you keep going and going and going. You're literally 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and nobody really understands the role in its fullness. So you take things home, you're kind of always busy mentally. And I realized that during those forums that the deeper issue to the issue I raised was actually about me needing to actually take care of myself and take some time away from the workplace, not checking my emails, which is absolutely difficult to do. Even on a beach in Florida, I find myself doing that for the pandemic. But yeah, it just made me focus on my own mental health and well-being, because in order for me to give, I have to look after me. And I did take some time out during that time to do that. And my organization's always extremely helpful in terms of any support I need. They wouldn't possibly be kind of having an ISM or a supervision, but they would ask, how are you feeling? Do you think you need some time away? And if I share that with them, they're happy to offer that. So I would say that for any registered manager or any manager of a service, they do need to take some time away from that environment to regroup and come back fresh, so that you can offer continued support for your employees.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Martha. I think we've also got another question in, maybe for you, Sue-Ann. I think it's Carl again who wants to ask a further question. I think he's got a string of questions. So go ahead, Carl.
Thank you. Yeah, I have. I think it's great that you've got some really good speakers. So this session is really interesting. Sue, Abdul, you both have been quite powerful in your comments around your experiences, which for me is really important in terms of where me and the company Amenity Care goes, because it is about the Alliance and delivering the services to help. It is about the sort of mental health. I've had some challenges with mental health, supporting two parents, as well as doing a business, as well as what you said, which is, where do you go when you take all these pressures on your own? So it is about having likes of David and people like you, where we can share the challenges, but actually make the difference. So I think that the question really is, when you mentioned about what you do, and particularly Abdul as well, both of you, in terms of the community, in terms of the challenges, particularly in the care industry, I'm doing a research project to identify the problems on how we can, I suppose, provide better support, better engagement, fill the, I suppose, bridge the gap. But also, I think when it comes to, Abdul said, cultures, well, first of all, it's the languages, understanding the communication. I speak one language, so Abdul, how the hell you do 9? I don't know, and do what you do, but that's fantastic. So somebody like you, I definitely need on board, because accessibility is a major issue. You talk about communication, it's a major issue. And both of those things I'm looking at from an IT background to a telecare understanding, right down to communication. And as you said, communicating with both parents that have some serious challenges of 4, 8 different conversations, same conversation over and again. How do I get them up to speed to feel inclusive rather than feeling isolated? And one of those is radio, because it's another way, hence this call. They would be on this call now listening, and I've had to do Zoom calls so that they can hear. But what I want to try and do is make them a little bit more independent to do those sort of things. So I think there is a way of doing it. And what I like to do is ask you to join me in making those changes, because the recommendations are there. It's about doing it collectively and supporting. And unless we do that, then we're going to have issues. So we're accountable, and I'm putting it back to you to help me, help everybody else bridge the gap. Please join me either as a speaker on a radio, but also in terms of a steering group to actually join the dots up and to deliver a solution. So I've sent you both a message. Please connect with me, and yeah, we can move things forward.
Thank you very much, Carl. I think one thing about what I've been doing, I'm not sure if everyone's aware, from over last year, there's been a massive movement that we've all been trying to work at together. And really it's addressing nuances, not just in our communities, but as a whole from the sector. But also, as well as we know, we all have different and individual challenges that we have to deal with. Personally, as well as obviously those on the front line as well, dealing with the people we care for. I think anything that can help knit this community and social care and NHS together is fantastic. And I think there's going to be a lot of people who probably would like to do this. I think one thing, once I get onto the next bit, because we're going to have to move on fairly quickly, we've got probably one more question that we will take, is really what can be done after that. And there are some wonderful organizations, and I think it's having everyone coming together to probably share like-minded people of how we can work together. So really thank you, Carl, for really the insight. I think that call for action, I think we all probably are all part and parcel of it, but having a vehicle to say that as well is really wonderful as well. So Carl, I'll be in touch, and I'm sure we will probably try and share sort of like-minded people together. Last question I think we've got is from Marina Kelly, is it?
Hi, it's Marlene. Hi. I was just wanted to say that I met with a clinical psychologist yesterday who has set up a project in Hertfordshire, and she reported to me that the uptake from social care teams is really low. So I think because in NHS services, then sort of support has been offered for longer, so they're used to having like maybe their managers make recommendations for them to seek to go to occupational health, or to get some support. But in social care provision, very few people took up the offer of the support over that through the whole pandemic. And because of that, I think some of the projects are likely to be removed. So I think that we will lose funding as a result of that. So we asked the clinical psychologist to come here and to the home and to spend some time, and to actually, I booked just 20-minute appointments for team members to go in and sort of really say what people need at the moment. Because my fear, like Sue-Ann said, is that if you offer people an app, or if you're, if you're white, middle class professional deciding what people might need on, the ground level, you might be just getting it really wrong. And I think from Hertfordshire, a lot of the services that they provided were really wrong. Some of my team members were asking me for contact details for things like the food bank and stuff, and not asking me for a calm app that they can sit down and breathe in and out to in the evening. So I think it just missed the point somewhere along the line. So the clinical psychologist came in and did the work yesterday and met with them for 20 minutes and has said, oh, actually, she's gone back to her managers and they're hoping that they can extend the project. But like Abdul said, maybe the way they're communicating in the words that they're using aren't hitting the people that they need to get to. So like one of the things I was taught recently from a friend like Abdul was about changing the terminology I was using, because nobody is going to tell me that they're depressed, but if I can change my terminology and use the right words. Now, for me, I've been managing for 15 years and no one's ever told me that. Nobody's ever told me that if I say, are you feeling tired, or is your head feeling full, or use different terms, I would go, or tension. No one's ever taught me that. So from the moment I was taught it, then I was using it and I was getting a different response from people. So I just think that there's a lot of the way we're doing things that needs to change. And I'm worried that if we don't do it very quickly and learn very quickly, then the money's going to get lost and the funding's not going to be there for the social care team.
No, I think that's really great, Marlene. And I think you probably stole my thunder, because before we move on to the next section, part and parcel of what I was engaged with over the last many months was this exact conundrum. We looked at various other websites, and there's a massive project called Keeping Well that's been happening up and down the country, and it deals with mental health and the well-being of staff, but it's mainly an NHS project, and a lot of social care staff didn't feel they could relate to that. And also as well, it lacked to have a lot of diverse nuances or things that people could relate to. Touching on what you said, Marlene, Abdul, and as well you, Sue, is really, it's not just a digital format, but it's finding a place where when you look at it, you can relate, or you want to continue further. There was a study on one of the websites where there was only up to maybe less than 20% take up from those from a cultural background, and because they just didn't feel they belonged. And I think we have to put things in place which we feel comfortable for. So, for example, it might be something which is more colorful rather than a white, background, which is well written, things which aren't necessarily, perfectly done, or a 90-degree angle every second. So we really have to look at, there's many nuances, and also places where people go to. I looked at things which, things to do with friend benches as well, and just someone being able to go and speak to someone. The first port of call that where most people, especially from a cultural and diverse point of view, go to, is they go to someone they know, or maybe a friend or family first, before they will go into any form of digital format, or maybe someone in the community, be it a faith leader or so forth. And so really taking all this into account, as well as the language, as Abdul says, is really key. So the final part today is really showing what we looked at. We sat down with one of the developers, and they they're not from a social care or NHS background, or do they have anything to do with mental health. And I'm going to present what we put together, and this is a London Care Support Forum working with SLaM and partnering with them. And I think it's, for me personally, it's ongoing, so that there are room to change, but I think it's a starting point. And I'm thinking having that as a starting point really does show, like Marlene said, you know, people just also want to be educated of new things they weren't aware of. So giving something a platform is really key. So I'm going to share what we've done, and today is really showing the initiative, a new initiative that's really been addressed. It is under Keeping Well, which is people may be able to go into their local areas for, and we're going to go and really go into that. So I'm going to start by sharing this, if you bear with me for a split second. So as you can see, this is the website that we were behind, and it's called Keeping Well. We started off with the logo in itself, really just to show you what we've achieved. I hope it's quite colourful. It was for South East London, and one of the challenges we had with the developer was that at least 60 to 70% of the workforce are from a cultural diverse background. So we wanted to give people really something that they could look at. It also as well challenges, one of the things that was important for me is that a lot of the Keeping Well websites were really based for the NHS. Social care staff didn't feel they belonged, and they didn't feel they could relate. If you think of your everyday staff member going on here, you know, you've got to think it's got to look appealing, you know, so we gave various things there. We also felt that another thing that people really were wanting to engage with was obviously being able to look at things. So we also decided to put some videos in here. So I want to start by playing you a welcome video for all those who actually come on here, if you bear with me.
Welcome to Keeping Well in South East London. The service is how to provide well-being and psychological support to all NHS and care staff in South East London, and those providing care to others in the community, including staff in care and residential homes. South East London is defined as Southwark, Lewisham, Lambeth, Greenwich, Bexley, and Bromley. And this service is for everyone working in these boroughs.
The COVID pandemic has brought considerable challenges and stresses to healthcare professionals. Working longer hours in hospitals, community and care homes, seeing friends and colleagues become unwell, being redeployed, or being asked to work in unfamiliar areas may have impacted your stress, your anxiety, or your mood. You may have worries about your own family, your friends, and their health and safety. You might be exhausted from juggling the pressures of home life and childcare, social isolation, and the uncertainty that this period has brought to all of our lives.
We know anyone can be affected by the pandemic and may need some help. We hope that a whole range of people, including healthcare assistants, clinicians, administrators, domestic staff, estates and facility staff, porters, managers and leaders will all benefit from this support. This is a service for all of us. The Keeping Well SEL service is here to provide a confidential listening ear over live chat, voice or video call. Click on the live chat button to start a conversation now. Alternatively, you can call us on the number listed at the top of the page or complete a request callback form by clicking on the button below. You don't have to share any identifiable information to engage in the chat. Keeping Well practitioners can offer a quick review of your wellbeing needs, as well as self-assessment support and guidance around apps and other self-help resources. You can also receive advice around team support and resources.
Through this portal, you can refer yourself for free, high-quality psychological therapy to help you overcome any difficulties you may be facing. We accept referrals from anyone, and all support is confidential and evidence-based. delivered by trained professionals with a wealth of experience working with common mental health problems. Learn more about this by clicking on our free psychological therapist button below and by starting a conversation with our team.
You will notice in the menu bar above there's a button called I Want Help With. If you click that button, you will find a drop-down menu with lots of areas to explore. Are you struggling with sleep, feeling anxious or in a low mood? Perhaps you're looking for ideas of getting more active or ways to improve your diet. Feel free to browse these topics, and at any stage you can start a conversation with one of our team via the chat box to learn more or to ask any questions you may have.
While you are here, why not check out our resources for teams page? Click on the button below. Teams who support each other and talk to each other are stronger. This improves the well-being of individual team members, both at work and at home. On this page, you'll find resources to support you and your team. Get in touch if you have more ideas to add.
When it comes to low mood, stress, anxiety and sleep problems, we know it's not always easy to know what to do next. In addition to the self-help resources and the option to talk to one of our team, you can always click on the self-check button below. This will take you to a page where you will find free and anonymous self-assessment tools, which will offer suggestions about what help to seek and when to seek it. Remember, at any stage you have the option to start a conversation with one of our team. For example, you may choose to discuss the results of your self-assessment and think through the options. As well as the self-assessment, on the same page you'll find the quizzes which, when completed, will provide recommendations for NHS-approved apps.
Please note that Keeping Well is not able to provide immediate support in an emergency. If you require immediate help, or if you think that you are at risk of harm to yourself or to or from others, then we advise you to, in an emergency, call 999 or visit A&E. Contact your GP by phone if you need immediate help. Outside of surgery hours, you can call NHS Direct for more guidance on 111. The NHS.uk website has information about different crisis support services, as well as coping strategies and ways to keep yourself safe. Please click on the red Urgent Help button above to find details of other organizations you may wish to contact.
We hope you find this portal helpful and warmly welcome your feedback. You can contact us with your comments via the email address at the top of this page. Thank you for visiting Keeping Well. Remember, if you get stuck at any point, then just click chat and start a conversation with the team. You do not need to share any identifiable information to engage in the chat or access the resources available through this portal. Take good care of yourself.
Thank you very much for taking part of one of the videos and many videos we sort of placed on there. We felt that people related to verbal conversations, and obviously YouTube being an easy platform to go to was something that they can go on as well. And we also found that having bold words as well, colorful, people that looks like you, we also had areas about us, contacts, how it works as well, stories, free psychological services. Also as well, if I want help, anything from sleep stress, especially things like low mood, anxiety, bereavement, even domestic violence and abuse, Black and Asian minority ethnic communities, resources for children and families, financial well-being and support. We also ourselves have got things that we also created, which were training, things like mindfully observing tensions, managing stress and MOT, critical staff, support, reflective spaces, and local employer-based support. These are sort of the things, some of the things that we've created behind it. We also felt as well that there was training called React training specifically for the NHS. And we also then created a counterpart, which is called Resolve training for those in social care, because we felt that they couldn't relate to a lot of, maybe as Abdul mentioned, the language that happens within the NHS wasn't similar to that of social care. To address giving that personalized effect and approach, and having this here showing all the things that we have. So on there at the bottom, as you can see, there's a chat function which goes live from the 17th, self-assessment, free psychological services, resources for teams. And this is how we can help. There's stories that are going to be uploaded of real stories of what people have gone through. And there's various contacts and various links as well, which will be updated regularly. The whole point is that it's not just NHS, it's a community that can help. And there is always a new suggestion on solutions that will be shared. So for example, a link to this event will probably be on this website and future events taking place. We felt that this covered and gave more of a realistic approach of what people thought about sort of their sort of mental health and well-being. And we thought it wasn't too intrusive and in a language that they could sort of relate to. And these are things that we've been behind. And remember, we started with a blank canvas and we thought we'd put something together. So we'd hoped that this is able to help those within social care as well as NHS. And it's one thing I'm very proud of. It's something which both areas and both people can come to, not just one. And as people often say, social care is often forgotten, but this is incorporating everyone. So I'm going to share the link for the site for people to actually look at. And also as well, we'd really like people just to give their feedback and really of what they felt, what and going forward, what they would like to see. It's not over, and we're continuing to do that. The great thing is we're working with not just, for example, SLaM, we're working with things like Oxley's, we're working with King's as well, College Hospital. All these areas are coming together, and hopefully they're beginning to realize that it's not just a you and I problem, it's a lot bigger. And doing this, hopefully they sit up and listen. That personalized approach and going beyond is really important. So please, if everyone wants to add any sort of mention anything or ask any questions, they can do. I also like to finally add as well, I'm very solution driven, and being solution driven, I always feel that there should be something at the end where people can, this is tangible. The end of this is, as I said, it's not just all this wonderful conversations that we've got, there is something that people can go to at the end of this afterwards. Long after I've gone, hopefully this will be continued and the conversation will be able to remain. So thank you very much for really being open to view what we've been behind. And I'm going to now open up to some Q&As. And I think I've got my first question. I've got, I think, Abdul, who's probably wants to sort of like share his points of view.
No, I found it really very, very, I'm not just saying because you are in front of me. I never even lie for any little reason as well in my life. It's a very, very informative and very simple to understand. This website, which you have made a note, I will go in my own time and go through the whole website. It's just, it's not a question or anything. I'm just asking, are you considering at some point including some of the resources in different languages as well?
Yes, we are. We are including that. This is just started to go out. We've got the format in which we're beginning to roll out into the public. We also do have the different language barriers. We are adding to it, so it's not over yet. There are other things like what you've mentioned as well. Even things like this are coming in. We do go and present to a senior group as well, but it's more of a partnership. So we're hoping that they do take on board what we're saying. A lot of the time, and what we found when we first had this in front of us is that someone had brought us a website already done, expecting us to work with it. And we had to get them to understand language, nuances, the culture of our community. And I think it's really important that it really, in order for this to continue, they have to realize that the language barrier is key. And addressing, and why we're here today, was a taboo and stigma behind mental health. For me, one of the key things which is really important is really taking away the stigma and taboo. We all, during this pandemic, have had issues and concerns. anything from just not being able to go out to the hairdressers to really serious issues as well. There's a whole raft, and the workforce is really huge that we're dealing with. And I think there are so many 101 different concerns that all of us have, but you have to be able to at least go somewhere initially. Without that, we won't be able to really address any of our concerns. And I think that, and you've mentioned you as a link worker, Abdul, you've gone into communities, but you're a presence, so people know where to go, or who to speak to. We need to have something like that as first port of call. There will be various communities, faith leaders and other things that will be added to it as time goes on and the ease of the lockdown happens, and maybe safer spaces where people can attend anonymously as well. And I think this is the beauty of this. This is ongoing, and it's not here just for today, but also for tomorrow and beyond.
Got about over 35 resources, which I have translated in Urdu, Gujarati, Bangla, Hindi, Persian, and Arabic. And all these are about mental health, depression, anxiety, low mood, psychosis. All PDF form I can give you. They are all approved by Pennine Care NHS Trust. And I have got audio CDs of mental health issues in 3 different languages, again approved by NHS. So I can provide you, if you need, all those through email. And also we have to just remember that, you know, this communication is honestly really important, and trained interpreters are important, because the languages are very different. If interpreter is not trained, he may be translating some word to word in assessment, and he says that lady is saying insects are crawling in my arms and heads, and the chances are she will be diagnosed with psychosis, where in her culture, which is northern India, she is saying pins and needles. So you know, so there are so many hundreds of these ways of explaining, because there are somatic symptoms they explain. Asian people believe mental health is nothing got to do with mind, it's all heart.
Yes.
So it's a very different kind of perspective in Asian culture.
I think that's really important. I think one thing we found as well, and it's not really from just a digital format, but a lot of people have now mobile phones where they're able to access, and we want people to be able to actually look on it rather than scrolling through many pages, to be able to have a look at something fairly quickly. As you said, Abdul, that they're able to click on something, even an area which they feel comfortable with, simple language, maybe very icon-based pictures, something where they can click on, and makes life so much easier. I think we play a role of bridging a gap between different communities now, and there are different cultures. There are many generations, first, second generations, who are now here, who can also help those who came, who are first generation, and we all can play a part. Part and parcel of this is that we've shown it's possible to do, and for other different websites or other places of keeping well up and down the country, that, you know, you can help other diverse communities and cultures as well. So I think it's great, and what you're saying is really key. I also think that in going further, I really thank everyone for really appreciating sort of the hard work that's gone behind it, and really seeing what can be done. I've got another question. If anyone's got, so I'm open for further questions. So anyone who's got further questions, please, I'd like them to either speak up or raise their hands. So, okay, I've got another question from Carl. If you can ask your question, please, Carl.
Feels a bit like bloody question time, doesn't it? Sorry, yeah, loads of questions because of where I am and where I am. Firstly, the site, fantastic job on what you've done. I really feel that it needed to be uplifted and not the legacy old school typical NHS site, which is really boring, not attractive, not engaging, and just informative information, which as soon as you look at it, you want to turn it off. So good job on that. I think one thing that's really missing, and it's something that I'm looking at, is sign language, because we've all talked about accessibility, and that is so important that right now there is a piece there, personally, that is an immediate requirement. And the second thing is this platform, fantastic. So if there is support from the NHS, get them to pull their finger out, pay someone to do some sign language, so it makes it accessible, because you'd have a bigger platform. They're the things that I'm taking away. As you can imagine, mine's self-funded, yours is government funded, so I hope you can get there a bit quicker than I can. But they're my tips of the day to make it a bit more inclusive.
So yeah, I mean, thank you, Carl, for that. Even though there are, I wouldn't necessarily say government funding, but there has been funding behind it. But the key thing is, it's not about necessarily the funding, because as we know, there's lots of funded government processes in place, and they're not done very well. And I think the reality is that having someone, and I've been to various meetings, governmental meetings as well, where I've sat down and you find you're the only person who really can relate to what's happening on the ground floor. And I think it's just relating the language, what's the reality of the day, what's happening every day, and so people can understand that. Yeah. And I think that's another area which I think is easily lost, and we can really look at, going forward. Yes.
Agree. The bit that's probably, and I just come off a call a bit earlier, which was with people with different disabilities, and I've asked them to be part of a team. Why? Because when we talk about things that we look at, we only can see it from our own eyes, but actually, what about everybody else's? So I think we can't mask everybody's culture unless people partake. To give a bit more of a feeling of it, we can't mask everyone's sort of disability. So it's about having a collective group that can look at all the other areas rather than one person represents all. So I think it's a bit about doing that as well. And as you say, reaching out and connecting, getting the proof of concept kind of ticked in the box. So if you do need that team, I'm happy to share that same team, because we've got the same challenge, so that they can give you a bit more input if need be.
I mean, I think it's great. I think one thing I will make everyone aware of is that, yes, the event is a cultural event looking at diversity, but however, what we're looking at is basically from a point of view of covering all NHS and care workers in that field. So it's not just from your race, religion, culture. It's really covering your mental health and well-being, and really finding things in place which can help that. Other areas will have maybe different messages that they can relate to. As you mentioned, sign language, translation, and even from our first speaker, Alex, when he first came on, really having something which can remove the stigma, so people can start to approach. People are going to come there. What we don't want is that there is a fantastic site or portal and no one feels comfortable to go in there. So it's really sharing the information, people talking, it's having things like communities on there where they may meet. We know that digital culture and virtual world like we have now is really possible, and that can happen. So having these things really available on there is important. YouTube videos, and sharing all of this during this period of time, which we really hope for. It's not going to be solved in a day, and hopefully it evolves, and all these great thinkers that come together are able to add to it. And I think what we're trying to do, Carl, as you've mentioned, is not just yourself, not me. There are many people who are going to be inputting to make this evolve, and it's really for everyone to be able to see it and really helps them in some capacity. We do know that the mental health has probably been not really looked at heavily, and it's a ticking time bomb that's waiting to happen. What we're trying to do is to address that going forward, so that people don't have to wait, because I'm sure there's lots of people who are here. Once, it opens up, and we're all going to be probably queuing up and waiting for referrals, maybe 2-3 years down the line. What we've tried to do is provide something which is available now, showing those having to deal with everyday challenges. The problem, what you have with a lot of these governmental or other areas, they have something which is created and you have to wait 6 months for it to happen. This is here now. for those to go on it. You can refer yourself, you can do your own test, you can, if you feel to need to go to maybe a GP or further help, we're trying to address as much as we can do. So the key is important that everyone really plays a part in that. And there is some stuff that's gone in here in the chat box, which I can see, which is obviously things like people, there are issues with disability, but I'm not going to turn around and mention just disability. We're all experiencing issues and concerns during this period. And, you know, everyone has got their own personal challenges, you know, and it's really coming out of it together and supporting each other. So if it's for the people we care for or the ones that benefit for it, we're, as best as we can represent a better us. And that's one of the things where we wanted to try and look at and covering things such as Portal. So thank you for that. Are there any other questions that anyone would like to add on, points that I'd like to share? Because remember as well, the point of this is that it's an open forum and not one is correct. We're all learning and there's something that we all can add. I will put my information in the chat box, and so people can send me various messages. What you do find is sometimes when you come to these events, which I've chaired many of, that people may not have an question now and maybe want to share something for later, you can do. We will be sharing this out as well. I've got most emails addresses for people that have registered, and we will be putting it out again. We will be having another event as well on the 26th of May, and this is to do with communication, and this is around not just mental health, but all the things that have come from the language, as Abdul says, and how to address that. And we'll be bringing further points on with that. Before I go on to the next stage, we thanked everyone for coming on today. And we also felt that giving back is really key, because we all can give back in some shape or form to everyone. And we're going to be doing a prize draw now for 2 people who hopefully have everyone's put their name in, to get a signed book from Alex, who's kindly donated 2 of his books that are here, which I think will be great. As you can see, his books, if you keep them well, probably mean a lot more for everyone. So we're going to start, and it's going to be random. So I haven't got any hands in it. You're going to see this random thing that's going to pick it out. So the names are in there. For those who are there, hopefully we will see. And are you ready for the randoms? So everyone, we're starting. Okay, so these are the 2 names that the winners. I'm not sure if they're in the chat box or if they're available now. I'm not sure if Stephanie White is there.
I am here, Helen Cleanthus.
And Helen, well done.
Thank you.
You both going to get signed copies from Alex. What you can do is, I'll be in touch with you. I will send, you should have my email address. If you haven't, just give me a direct message in the chat box. And then Alex will probably sign your book, and you can probably have him mention something to you personally. Thank you very much for that. And I would have loved to have given out more books, but then Alex is probably gonna end his author. Alex and probably ask me. That's going to be hurting what he's going to be doing further. But by all means, I shared Alex's details from earlier. So if you do want to take on Alex's books, they're on Amazon and easy to sort of buy. And I would encourage you to share it amongst those in your community, and as well in the schools and your children as well. So thank you very much.
I appreciate that. Really appreciate that.
No problem, Alex. So what I'll do is I'll send you a message, and they'll be in touch probably with you directly, which I'll share. Or you can put your information in the chat box directly, Alex, and for them. And then I'm sure they might want a special message that they want inside for your book to write them. So thanks for donating that, Alex. And
no worries. Thanks everyone, and thanks for, like I say, all the profits from any sales go to supporting our work as a non-profit organisation. So please, spread the word. We really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for that, Alex.
No worries.
So going back to really rounding off, because we haven't got much time left for today, it's really showing what can be done as we work together. As I mentioned before, I'm really, action focused and really trying to find a solution or solution driven. And I guess the key question is, what people will be asking is, how do we overcome barriers to mental health care? And really, what positive actions can we do? And I think the simple things will be things from, as we said, speaking to someone you can trust, take a friend or relative to your appointment, asking this things as simply as a healthcare professional who's a person of color, if you feel that's the case, someone who actually you can relate to or look or you who looks like you, as we say, and really show your healthcare professional about your culture and background. We usually don't do that. I think there is a lot there behind it. And what I find now is, don't be shy to express maybe cultures of what you've done or what things work for you. Because I think as much as doctors want to help you with whatever ailment that you have, they also want to work on a more personalized level. And I think sort of a person-centered relationship is really the way to go forward. Having more of an interaction is key. And so that's important. And another factor, which I think is really important, is that we can only work with people who actually speak up. So suffering in silence is probably something which we always struggle with. It's good to speak and it's good to talk and speak to someone. If you feel, just as Abdul was mentioned today, that you don't feel comfortable maybe speaking to your GP, try and find someone, family, friends, or your manager in the workplace that you can share this information with. I think it's really key that that you do, because what you found since the pandemic now, there seems to be a change where people are open to listen. We have the likes of social media now, which are available, and there should be someone in the community which are able to share your thoughts, and hopefully it comes to people like myself or other sort of people who have a position where they can actually take it further. And I think really for us all, talking, communicating really helps everyone with that. What I found, what we did recently with under London Care and Support Forum, where we were in groups, we took out groups of maybe 6, 7, 10 people, and where they had personal messages, they're able to engage, they're able to speak their mind without their manager, and they shared some really insightful things about their organizations, and probably felt that they weren't heard and no one would be able to speak to them, and finding a platform where they could engage. My belief is, no matter how small or large organization is, that everyone should be heard and should be able to have a platform to be able to speak to someone without fear of, as we said, a stigma or taboo. And it's not just officially done, obviously, but from the GDPR point of view, we know that, but there's also just small things. My final thing is, are there solutions out there? And I would always say there is, and I always look on the positive side of things. Just because we are under pressure, it doesn't mean we can't do simple things such as engaging with everyday things, having a wellbeing champion in your workplace. I've always suggested things such as having cook-offs between the workforce, or bringing a taste day. For my culture, people might decide who cooks the best sort of maybe cultural food, and having a test, and maybe having all people to judge amongst each other. All these things like bake-offs, creating things, sports day. All these simple things are really bringing your communities together, because we are a community. And even though it's cultural, we can share our cultures, which we can all learn from. And the culture and diversity is really fantastic, because that's where the NHS started from. A lot of people shared all these wonderful merriments and got to know how to go forward. So we really want that to continue. And I think any manager or owner can probably, or even head of organization, CEO, exec, can really take that into their workplace and really share it around. I mean, part and parcel of this is I have more of a platform which I'm able to do this. And having this platform means that we can go forward and do this more often. We're having an event on the 26th, and this is to do with communication. We're also open for other suggestions of other events that we may run. And as we said, that we're going to share this going forward to other parties as well. And this is more of a national platform. And so it means that hopefully this gets picked up by other areas. We've got Abdul all the way in, as we say, I can't remember, is it Oldham? We've got Alex in Wigan. We've probably hopefully got people further than that, all down to south as well. So these is all what can be done and in the collaboration with the NHS and social care. So anyone who's from the NHS really should pay attention that social care are also really important as well and should be taken on board. There's very many different nuances, not just in the language with social care, but also with the NHS. And training from everything, it all plays a part in this. So before I leave, I'd like to thank everyone. We do have things such as it is going up to 12:30. So if there's any other questions or any quotes or anything that people want to sort of raise, please, by all means, you can do. You will get recording of this, and I am open to listen to various other suggestions that can do. Also, as well, any other sort of councils, commissions, and so forth, who really want to sort of really see what can be done further. You know, from LCAS, Lung Care Support, we are sharing some of these results and what we've done as well. We're happy to speak and sit down almost from a consulting point of view, what we've done as well. So thank you everyone for really taking part. And I hope to see everyone again soon. And also as well, please look after yourself. And my other thing I would say, as lockdown eases, please stay safe. Don't all go out at once and lose control, but also as well, really keep in touch, support your fellow colleagues as well as those in the community. Thank you very much for joining this event. Hope it's been very helpful and everyone's enjoyed it. And there are some take homes that everyone's been able to sort of leave with. Finally, if you do have any, or anyone does have any serious issues concerning their mental health and well-being, please do go to a professional, seek local, if there's a website, NHS, GP, and other things, please do go there and address that. Please do not suffer in silence. That's something that we don't want people to do. Your mental health is your mental wealth. So thank you everyone for joining, and take care. Thank you.
Thanks, Dudley. Just to let you know, I've got Helen's address as well, our email address as well. So I can sort that with the book, sort Helen with the book there.
Okay, I think it's Stephanie as well, is it? In there as well. And we've got it as well. So thank you very much for that.
No worries.
Thank you, Sue-Ann, as well, for really being on board as well. It's really insightful. I'm not sure Sue-Ann's still there, if she's gone, and giving your personal thoughts and your experiences. I'm sure a lot of people hopefully will be able to open up and speak about what they've experience they've had as well. There is a sharing and caring is another thing that people do mention, but it does pay, and simple things actually can make a difference. Everyday things, saying hello, greeting people when they come in, thank you, really acknowledging people do exist, from someone who's a new starter, for someone who's been experienced. We all like someone to really acknowledge and really know that we exist. So thanks again, and good day everyone, and hopefully see you at the next event. Bye everyone. Okay.